Hello and welcome to the Human Relations Board. Today is Wednesday, November 17th, and we have a quorum, so we're going to get started. I'd like to ask the clerk to start us with roll call, please.
You know what? It looks like we have lost Alicia. So if we could just pause a moment to see if she comes back on, because she is our clerk.
Yeah, we'll give her a minute.
Thank you. Not sure what happened there.
We gotta love technology.
Right. We are at its mercy right now in this virtual world. So appreciate that. Sorry about that, Commissioner.
That's right. Looks like she's coming back now.
Yep, great.
All right, Alicia, if you could do roll, that would be great.
And she's gone again. Let me give Shauna, if you could call down to the clerk's office and see if there's something going on, because I don't have the slate,
roster,
or else I would do right. So hang on just a second. I apologize, everybody. Bear with us. And there's Jen Greger too. So that might give a few more people just a moment to join too.
And she's trying to come back. Hi, Alicia, are you there?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Excellent. I'm sorry, this computer kicked me out twice, but I'm in now. Would you like me to take roll?
Please do. Thank you.
Thank you. Dina Spencer. Whitney Wardell. Joe
Here.
Hooper.
Here in Battle Creek.
Thank you. Kathy Zenda Wilson.
Present, attending remotely from Battle Creek, Michigan.
Thank you. Monica Herring.
Present, attending remotely from Battle Creek, Michigan.
Thank you. Chris Lucier.
Present, attending remotely from City Hall, Battle Creek, Michigan.
Amora Ackley. I'm sorry, I just put two names together. Amora Austin.
Emira Austin here, attending remotely from Battle Creek.
Thank you, dear. Jeffrey Cotton. Jennifer Greger.
Here, attending remotely from Battle Creek.
Thank you. Kiona Ackley.
Here, joining remotely from Battle Creek, Michigan.
Thank you. Aubrey Kipp.
Here, attending remotely from Battle Creek.
Thank you. Lori Lake. And Pam Lastly.
I'm here appearing remotely from Springfield.
That's excellent. We're all set with attendance.
All right, we did have Jeff join us as well, Alicia.
Okay. Jeffrey Cotton. From Battle Creek. You can give me the thumbs up. Are you from Battle Creek? There you are.
Yep, Jeff from Battle Creek.
Thank you very much.
All right, awesome. Thank you everyone for being here. This is a great turnout. I'd like to ask for approval of minutes from September 15th, 2021.
So moved, Chris Lucier.
All right, good motion.
Second, Pam Lastly.
Second.
Okay, we've gotten a motion and support for the approval of minutes from September 15th, 2021. Thank you very much. We do not have anything, clerk, I'm assuming, from communications, committee reports, or old business.
We do not.
Okay, so I'm going to ask that we conduct an election for a vice chair and secretary, and that the slate of officers will bring us into alignment with our bylaws. And I'd like to ask the clerk to do that by roll.
Yes, we will do it by roll. So what we need first is for you to put forth your nominees.
Thank you. And that, so to be clear, a vice chair and a secretary is what you are.
Yes, ma'am. Vice chair and secretary. We should probably do them separately.
Okay.
Alicia, I think what you do is you call the roll and then they will indicate their choice. We do not need nominations.
Excellent. Thank you. Joe Hooper, who would you like to put forth for vice chair? I can't hear you. You'll need to unmute, Pastor Hooper.
Okay, I'll abstain at this time.
Okay. Kathy Zenda Wilson, who would you like to nominate?
As vice chair, I would like to nominate Dina Spencer, please.
Thank you. Bonica Herring, who would you like to nominate?
I guess I'll abstain right now too.
Okay. Chris Lucier.
So, I mean, how do I know if someone even wants to serve in that capacity? I mean, I could just throw out a name, but I haven't communicated with the person, so I don't know if they're interested.
Understand. And you know, this this is an interesting way, but if the person would not take the nomination, then they could say that at the time their name is presented.
Okay, then I would nominate or vote for Keona Ackley.
Thank you. Miss Austin.
I would also like to put my vote in for Kiana Ackley.
Maybe.
Thank
Hey,
you.
hang on just a second. Alicia, you have got a lot of background noise. Is there any way that you could silence that?
Yeah, I'm going to move rooms if you just give me a minute, okay?
Thank you.
Certainly. Okay, hopefully that's better.
It is. Thank you.
Thank you. So next, Jeffrey Cotton, who would you like to nominate?
Well, since Kiana didn't say she didn't want to serve, so I'm going to nominate her as well. Ms. Ackley.
Thank you. Jennifer Greger.
Yes, since she didn't say no, I would also like to nominate Kiana Ackley.
Thank you. Kiana, who would you like to nominate? I don't know if she can hear us, so we'll move on and come back to her. Aubrey Kipp, who would you like to nominate?
I would also like to nominate Miss Ackley, please.
Thank you. And Pam Lastly, who would you like to nominate?
I'd like to nominate Dina Spencer.
Thank you very much. We currently have nominations for Kiona Ackley and Dina Spencer for vice chair.
Well, and here, Alicia, you have more, since there's no nominations, there are actually votes. So that would mean you have more votes for Miss Ackley than you do for Miss Spencer. However, I do believe we should hear from Miss Ackley that she is willing to serve in that capacity, and I'm afraid that she may not, and I see her square is gone.
I can still see her, but her mic is muted. So I don't know if she hears us.
Okay, wow, I lost her square in what I'm
I don't see
seeing.
her. I don't see her either.
Are we able to ask people like if they'd like to do it or have people nominate themselves?
Here it comes. You are allowed to nominate yourself, and really how this type of voting occurs is, as I said, if your name is called out and you are not willing to serve, you need to say something. That's why it's really important that we hear from Miss Ackley, because she has received the most nods. Yes.
Miss Ackley, it looks as though you're back on. Would you like to speak to the nomination? And I think she left again.
It's just, boy, it just feels like we can't quite get there.
I know. So
Go ahead.
We had a work group meeting and Kiona was a part of that on Monday. she shared that she was going to have to call in because she had a doctor's appointment. So I think she's probably trying to manage that as well. So she's back on, it looks like. Kiona, are you there?
Yes, I'm so sorry. I actually gave Commissioner Wilson a heads up that I'm actually multitasking with the personal matter while joining the meeting. Today I tried to unmute myself and then I continue to freeze because I have bad reception due to me joining from my phone. But I hear Pastor Hooper, I believe, possibly may have nominated me. And then I kind of, from there, everything froze. And I've been trying to get back on since then. I do apologize.
So currently we have 5 nominations for you, Miss Ackley, and 2 nominations for Miss Spencer. So we wanted to see if you had any words on that. Were you interested in being the vice chair? And then we would have to vote because we need a quorum has to vote. So we have to get the maximum.
Are we able to elaborate what are the requirements and the ask of this chairperson? Or I would have to make a decision without knowing.
Yeah, you can ask. Rebecca, can I ask that you can share with Kiona?
Ken and I I'm also having a technology glitch because the bylaws went down. So if you could just give me a second to get back. Okay. I do not know. It feels like there's some sort of bug in the air.
I know. It's been all
and
day
so I apologize, but give me just a moment.
Okay, I appreciate it.
Yeah, it feels like a comedy of errors today. We all need to have a little grace.
Shauna, are you able to pull up the bylaws? Because I am really having a trouble getting at the document for whatever reason. I'm getting okay, the technology is shining on me again. Okay, according to the bylaws, I know we just have to take it. It's a very simple explanation. The vice chair will perform the duties of the chairperson in the absence of the chairperson. And so that is what the bylaws state. So Kiona, you would fill in for the chair in her absence and or offer support.
Okay, thank you so much for that. I do appreciate it. And I do appreciate those that voted for me. I would accept that nomination and move forward to the voting process.
And just to explain what Alicia's saying is we need a quorum of 7 to cast a vote for Miss Ackley for that to be confirmed. So I know we had a couple of people abstain, and I apologize for the confusion. Technology didn't help, and then we're trying to get documents to come up. So we can call the roll again to confirm the votes for vice chair.
Yes, ma'am.
Go ahead, Alicia, please.
Okay. Kathy Zunda Wilson?
Yes.
For Kiona?
All right, sorry, yes.
Thank you. Unica Herring?
Yes, for Kiona Ackley.
Thank you. Chris Lucier?
Yes, for Kiona Ackley.
Miss Austin?
Yes, for Kiona Ackley.
Thank you. Jeffrey Cotton?
I would vote yes for Kiona Ackley.
Thank you. Jennifer Greger?
Yes, for Kiona Ackley.
Kiona Ackley?
Yes, correct. Yes, for Kiona Ackley.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was calling Miss Ackley. Do you vote for yourself?
Yes, for myself. Thank you.
Thank you. Pam Lastly?
Yes, for Kiona Ackley.
And Joe Hooper?
Yes, for Kiona Ackley.
Thank you. It is unanimous. We have a new vice chair, Kiona Ackley. Are we ready to move on to votes for secretary?
Yes, and congratulations, Kiona, and thank you.
May I just say, I'm happy to read the duties of the secretary before we enter into the role. And I'm going to read those, and before everybody is scared off, I'll read them. The secretary will record and distribute the minutes of each meeting, keep records of board business, and be responsible for all written communications. So before anybody is scared with that, we have a city staff person, Ms. Shauna Allen, will be handling those duties and will coordinate with the secretary, but the secretary would not be solely responsible for carrying out those duties. I'm afraid if that were the case, everybody would not nominate anyone. So just wanted to make that clear.
Okay, and on that note, we'll take nominations for secretary. Monica Herring, who do you nominate?
Once again, is there anyone who would like the position? I don't want to just throw somebody in it because that's not fair.
I would do it.
Chris Lucier said he would be interested. If anyone is interested besides him, is there anyone else interested? Okay, so I would need someone to put forth a nomination for Chris Lucier, and then we'll vote.
I will nominate Chris Lucier for secretary. This is Bunika Herring.
And I second Kiona Ackley.
Thank you. And I'll do a roll call for this as well. Pastor Hooper.
Yes, I vote yes for Chris Lucier,
Thank you.
secretary.
Thank you. Kathy Zenda Wilson,
Yes, for Chris Lucier as secretary.
Monica Herring,
Yes, for Chris Lucier.
thank you. Chris Lucier,
Yes.
Amora Ackley.
Jamira Austin, yes.
Yeah,
For
I'm gonna
Chris
get it right
Lucier.
one time. So
No,
sorry.
It's okay, yes, for Chris Lucier.
Thank you. Jeffrey Cotton, don't know if we lost Mr. Cotton or not, so we'll move on. Jennifer Greger,
Yes, for Chris Lucier for secretary.
thank you. Kiona Ackley,
Yes, for Chris Lucier for secretary.
thank you. Pam Lastly,
Yes, for Chris Lucier for secretary.
thank you. And did Mr. Cotton come back on?
You did.
Yes. I vote
And-
yes. for Chris Lucier.
Thank you very much. It is unanimous as well for Chris as the secretary.
All right, thank you, everyone. Thank you, city staff, for helping us with that. This was round 2 trying to get this done, so I really appreciate it. Next up is an update on the equity audit. I'm going to ask Rebecca to provide us an update on where things stand, and I'm going to hand it over to you, Rebecca.
Thank you very much. Not a huge update, but let you know that the MGT consulting team is knee deep in going through all of the city's policies, procedures, and documents. So they have received everything. And so they're working together to put the report for phase 1. As you all recall, that's the human resources systems phase. And they anticipate having a draft report to the city that we will share with all of you and our community team by the end of November, although that seems so quick, right? November, the end of November is almost here. So we anticipate that if everything goes well, we'll have that by November, and perhaps that could be discussed at the December HRB. We'll just have to see when it arrives, and do we have enough time to digest what we have received. And then they have already asked to have a kickoff of phase 2 of the equity audit. And, that's the police community relations phase. And so an internal team will be meeting in December as a kickoff of that. And then we should have a better timeline that will then be shared with the Human Relations Board as well as our community leadership team. And we will begin that phase of the project. So we're really eager to see that first draft of the phase 1. And to get phase 2 started. That's what I have, Kathy. Thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca. We look forward as a board to supporting the digestion of that report and recommendations that come of it and what we can figure out to move forward. So thank you. Next up is Citizen Review Board Work Group update. And we had a group of us meet on Monday of this week to review the proposal that's been submitted. And we have some feedback we'd like to provide. Amira Austin, would you like to provide that, please? Thank you.
Yes. Yes, thank you, Kathy. First and foremost, we just want to thank Kerry and his team for the legwork that they've done to give us a foundation. I want to thank everybody here for being so open-minded and, you know, collaborative on this process as we talk about what a citizens review board could look like. Obviously, we'll continue to have these conversations moving forward, but we really wanted to present some kind of tangible and concrete feedback so we can continue to move forward. With that said, I do want to first refer back to the vision statement that was in the proposal of the Citizen Review Board. So I'm just going to read that off to refresh everyone's memory. The vision statement reads, the Battle Creek Citizens Review Board is a safe and trusted entity for community members to bring their compliments, complaints, and concerns about Battle Creek Police Department actions. It is trusted by citizens and police alike to hold public servants accountable to best practices and protect civil rights. So again, with that being said, we just wanted to point out that that is very much in alignment with what the Human Relations Board is also looking for when it comes to Citizens Review Board. And so in our discussions on Monday, we kind of talked about with that at the center, we're not sure how this Citizens Review Board could be a completely separate entity if the goal is to build a trusted relationship with the city, police, and citizens, and to be that bridge. So that's something we talked about, not wanting to sever that relationship in the beginning. And obviously structure would be talked about going forward, but maybe think of this board as being structured similar to the HRB, where the city does provide logistical support, but it is still an open space where we can review concerns openly. So I'm just kicking that off. So we just, on behalf of the subcommittee that met on Monday, I'm just going to read off some of the technical feedback we had as it relates to board composition. If the best way to do this is to read off all of those and then open the floor, I'll do that. But if there's something we want to pause on, please feel free to open your mic and let me know. We want to get this proposal to a place where when it's presented to the city commission, that it gets the support that it needs. So I'll start off with one of the first things that stuck out to us was the application process. And so the subcommittee talked about it being a more public application process. There were some very specific designators as far as there was one for a practicing law attorney, and then some belonging to certain, social justice groups and things of that nature. And so we don't want to discourage any citizens from applying. We want it to be more of an open application, as not to discourage people who may think they may not fit in those categories. I think it could be more of a suggestion, like, hey, if you have this background, that would be beneficial, that kind of a thing, but don't want to specify or require those certain designators starting off in the beginning. We also were looking at the requirements when it comes to residency. We just wanted some clarification around what it meant when it said surrounding townships for those who would be eligible. We really want it to be Battle Creek centered, and those people who have interactions with BCPD and can provide valuable and experienced opinions and things like that of that nature, and actually have interactions with BCPD. So we wanted to keep it Battle Creek focused, for lack of a better word. So we thought a better marker for that would be the coverage area that BCPD covers. I don't know that specifically. They could speak to that, but just some clarity around who would be eligible when it came to residency. And if you're at the subgroup, feel free to jump in anytime if I'm missing anything. Thirdly, sorry, Kathy, did you open your mic?
I was just going to say, you're doing great.
So thirdly, we did not want to exclude any former law enforcement. The subgroup did agree that no current police and police officers or department members should be on the board, but we think that the expertise of a former law enforcement officer or someone who worked in the department would be beneficial because they would know the inner workings of the internal department, and just we think their expertise could be very beneficial. And then next, we also didn't think it was necessary to have a practicing law attorney. We think someone with a law background, again, would be beneficial as well. So opening that up to people who are interested that may have that background to apply, but not for it to be specific to a practicing law attorney. You know, someone who formerly was a law attorney, something like that would also work, we think. And then we wanted to really start small and have a tangible action for this group. So whenever if and when the CRB is created, we think something small, a tangible step that could be taken was creating some sort of neutral space where citizens could provide those compliments, concerns, and feedback. So something like a website or a Dropbox or something that was a separate entity from the BCPD. So we know that people can take those concerns to BCPD right now. I think it's online. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but we wanted to really have this group have a separate neutral space for citizens to put in those concerns. I don't think I'm forgetting anything. Kathy or someone in the subgroup can feel free to jump in, and we'll obviously open up the floor to everyone else just to hear back from you all on that.
Yeah, thank you very much, Amira. And I know we've got Jeff, you've got your hand up, and I'll call on you in 1 second. The only other thing that I have in my notes was how it's really critical, and I think the essence of this proposal is that there would be some autonomy. And so how can we do that given the structure, the relationship with the city, and simultaneously ensure that there is some autonomy and independence with this group? And I think that has to be something that we are very transparent about. We did talk about the other boards and the support they get from the city, and that there is, from my perspective as a chairperson who's also a commissioner, very little influence from the city on the agenda that gets developed or the subject matter that gets discussed. And so we have to really be really clear about what those relationships are. I'm going to ask that if anybody else on the work group has anything to share, you do that and just unmute yourself, but I'll ask for Jeff first. He's got his hand up. Jeff.
Hello, yeah, I have two questions, maybe a question and a statement. My first question was, like, how much due diligence did y'all do for this board? Like, did y'all really study citizen review boards and the history of them? And, you know, did y'all really get some information on those things? And my second question, maybe a statement, I guess, what was the purpose of all of those calls when we were talking about the Citizens Review Board? If we still, like, if the next step still is not putting it on the table of the people and asking the people what they think before, like, these type of decisions are made, I'm wondering how we go back to square one with, you know, a list of decisions and things that should be in play when we haven't even talked to the people. We haven't asked, you know, the citizens of the city of Battle Creek. That's all I'm thinking right now.
Yeah, thank you, Jeff. If I might, I think the reality, I don't think we're going back to square one. I think that we have a proposal in front of us right now, and the group decided that it was our responsibility to provide some feedback on the proposal that was in front of us. And I'll let Kerry speak for himself about the due diligence question about what was done there. I'm assuming that's who you're asking it of and not the work group. But I was
asking the work group. I was not Kerry. Me and Kerry we've been at it for weeks already on that topic. No, I was wondering if this, you know, the individuals involved in the work group.
Yeah, so I can't speak on behalf of the group collectively, but I know that as a member of that work group that I've done some pretty extensive reading just preparing for each one of these meetings. I don't know what the the bench or bar would be that I need to be reaching to feel like I know it really well, but I have, at least tried to get myself up to speed on what they are and talk to several people about it, in addition to reading reports and looking at the resources that have come our way.
And I'll be blunt, 'cause I'm not trying to be insulting whatsoever, but it just seems so police centered. Everything keeps being so police friendly and police centered. That's not the purpose of a citizen review. I've said it too much, so I'm really trying not to say it again and just leave it alone myself personally. But every time we really talk about it, it's always BCPD that's at the center of this. That's not the purpose. They're really antagonizing tables. They are supposed to keep each other in check. But that's all. I ain't gonna go down to that on that anymore. I've talked too much about that already.
Thank you, Jeff. Pam?
Yeah, I was thinking maybe we need to clarify which of the three types we're looking at from the three different choices we had, and go from that, because we're looking at the lighter end and Jeff's looking, I think, at one of the higher end, and that included the investigations and all of that, and why it was decided that we didn't think we should go that route.
Well, I think thank you, Pam. I think as a reminder, there are three distinct roles CRBs can play, but there are no two CRBs that are alike. They are dependent on the community they're in, the setup of the municipality that they exist within. And so most are a hybrid of some sort, right? So that I just want to provide that caveat. There is one end on the extreme end where they have full investigative authority, where they actually have folks that are investigating, right? Then there is the review and audit. Well, actually, there's just the pure review. They get information and they're actually reviewing it. And then there's the auditing that goes a little bit deeper. And if anybody wants to correct me if I'm wrong with this, the audit one is that they're looking a lot more at data and having conversations about what is this data telling us about police actions that we need to be paying attention to. And again, most CRBs are a hybrid of a few of those different roles, but there was an investigative quality to the proposal that we had submitted to us for our review and consideration. Now, we don't get to vote on this. The goal of Rebecca and Chief bringing this, because the proposal was submitted to them, the purpose of it coming to HRB was to provide them feedback and direction. So while if there is a desire for this to be something different, we have not received any other proposals. And so we wanted to make sure that we were honoring the process and that we were providing the feedback that we felt was important.
I understand that. I guess maybe it was more so towards Carrie, not necessarily Carrie, but the whole process. I'm just wondering what the rush is, and not saying that it might not be successful. It's possible that it can be successful. I'm just wondering, why is it being rushed? Why is it going to be set in front of the commission's table before? Like, why not? Why wouldn't, if I was a PR person for the Battle Creek Police Department, I would welcome the opportunity to visit each one of these communities and explain to them some of the basic policies and procedures of the Battle Creek Police Department, and explain to them what they would need to familiarize themselves with as residents and citizens in the community in order to form a citizens review board on their own. I would, if I was a PR person, because you reaching out, that's community outreach, and you educating the community at the same time on some of these things that us on this phone call right now might not even know at the time being. That's all I'm saying, is that I believe this process just feels quick, it's rushed. And then my mind, I have a picture of mine. So I'm like, okay, now somebody gonna vote on something, and then when they vote on something, then somebody gonna be able to get some funding for something. And it's just the same basic process that we continue to get caught up in. That's all, man. But I'm trying not to take it.
No, Jeff, I appreciate it. And I appreciate your candor and being direct. I don't think that anybody on our work group was suggesting that we're trying to rush anything. I think the proposal's been in front of us for several months now. It probably doesn't feel very rushed on Kerry and his group's end. And we aren't pushing for it to go. We don't have a date set for when we're going to recommend this go to commission. We just want to provide the feedback to Rebecca so that in her relationship with Kerry, who had submitted the proposal, that there can be ongoing conversations about our feedback and whether or not that's relevant. Right. The other thing that, to your point, Jeff, that I think we talked a lot about on Monday was that this is going to be made up of uncompensated volunteers, which we appreciate. We talked about the composition of that, but there was also considerable training that was going to be required. And there was concern by the committee that lift for any volunteers would be pretty considerable. And we wouldn't want it to be that you get the same people at the table that we see at every table in Battle Creek. I think to your point, Jeff, like, how do we ensure that this is a citizen review board, that the representatives that are on it represent those who have a lot of interaction with the police department in ways that aren't always favorable, so that we have a really good appreciation for what the experiences might be out in the community, and not just people who sit in boardrooms or go to City Hall.
And I'm sorry if I feel accused. I'm not really trying to sound accusatory. I just know that as far as my community goes, we got to take different measures to cross those barriers. The people don't know what's going on. They're not participating in politics, social development, the future. They just struggling trying to survive their everyday lives. We got to take different measures to reach them. I know this for sure. That's one thing I know. Now, what those measures precisely are, I don't know. I'll be trying everything myself. Sometimes it don't work. But I do know that the status quo does not work when it comes to reaching the people that are going to be mostly affected by these things.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I didn't take anything that you've said as an accusation, Jeff. So just for that, I believe that, so I've been doing community development work for long enough to know that sometimes you have to just start with something. And that once you get into it and you've taken a few of those first steps, that you can see what is missing and adapt it. I'd also want, my feedback to be just that to the city, that if this were something that were formed and was commission sanctioned, which is what is being requested, that we find a way to make this an adaptable kind of board that isn't so stringently held to, when bylaws get developed, let's talk about what goes into those so that we can actually ensure that we're reaching what it is we're trying to accomplish. And for me, it felt like, this 80-20 rule, can we get to something that's 80% acceptable to us and then work on the rest of it as we progress? Thoughts from others?
I appreciate the work of the group, and that seemed reflective of some of the conversation that we had. So,
thank you. So then, Rebecca, I think our hope was that the notes would capture our feedback. If there's anything else you would like from the work group, if you need that documented in some way, if you could let us know. We're happy to be part of those conversations moving forward. As we can do this in partnership with Kerry and his group. I'm happy to do that. But I just open it up to you to see if there's anything else you need from us or questions you had.
No, I was typing furiously. Thank you, Amira and group, for sharing. If you have any notes, that would be helpful, but I think I was able to capture. Plus, we also have the recording. So anybody that's on here that wants to reflect or think back about what was discussed and questions come up, we will make that recording available, obviously, as this is a public meeting. No, I'd like to have a chance to talk with Chief Blacker about, the reflections here and kind of some of the things that came out of the subgroup. And I also want to give Kerry and his team the opportunity to reflect on what he just heard, because in full transparency, we weren't sure if the committee was going to be ready to share thoughts. I mean, that was a big lift and ask for a group that just met on Monday. So appreciate you putting those and bringing those forward. So wanted Kerry a chance to take that back perhaps to his working group, and then Chief Blacker and I can sit down with Kerry and his group and talk through some of that, what that might look like, and then perhaps come back to the group. But also if Jeff has reflections after this that he wants to share, or if there is, another proposal out there that the group could reflect on or review, that would be great as well. Just want to make sure that we're keeping this open, but also keeping the discussion moving forward, because it does seem like it's rushing, but then it doesn't, because Chief Blacker and Carrie and I have been having these conversations for quite a little bit, but knowing that the direction was that we needed to get more community input. So appreciate the work of the subgroup as well as the entire Human Relations Board.
Thank you. And just to be really transparent, the tension with something like this is very evident, and it makes it really hard to know what the right answer, the right approach is. And I imagine that Kerry and his group struggled with this the entire time they're doing it, and maybe why they fell on this being an independent nonprofit as it's listed in the proposal. But as far as the Human Relations Board work group was concerned, that just this first step in making these this relationship better between the community and the PD, which is the ultimate goal, is to create the safe space that may not currently exist. And so I just want to reiterate that that was not meant to be the entire, it is where we think a good place to start it would be. So.
Commissioner, if I might say one other thing, the other component, and I just shared it in the equity audit update, we're about to enter phase 2 of the equity audit, which takes a look at community police relations. And there may be some very helpful information from their review that we should be considering, as we discuss a citizens review board. So, there is another kind of set of external eyes that will come in and take a look at that relationship and the systems that exist in Battle Creek, and may have some good suggestions or offerings as part of their report of phase 2 of the equity audit that could also be helpful in this process.
Thank you.
And I just think, excuse me, sorry. I just think that back to what Jeff was saying, the importance of the community input in something like this is major. Just like the city is doing with the ARPA funds, where we're having community conversations to actually sit down and talk to the people. I think that's definitely one way that we're going to find out how the city plays into it, because to me, from what I've researched about citizens review boards, they are community driven, and there's a lot less community in this than it seems it should be. Excuse me.
That's all right. Thank you, Bonica. Commissioner Herring?
Yes,
Okay.
I just like to see more community in it.
Thank you. So noted. So I think this was a good first step. I think that we'll provide that feedback. We'll have ongoing conversations. And I want to thank the work group as well as everybody on the HRB for really, if you didn't care, you wouldn't be as committed to this kind of feedback in this process. So I just want my sincere appreciation for it. I think we've got the right folks at the table to do this. And I want us to remember that while some of us are affiliated more directly with the city, this is a group of residents who come together every month for this very reason too, is to create this bridge between the city and the community. And so it is what we make of it. Okay, I'm going to open it up for public comment now. And Ryan, if we have anybody on the phone, or Mr. Whitfield, if you wanted to share anything.
There are no callers in the queue right now, sorry.
Okay, thank you. Carrie?
Certainly, I'd be happy to share a few things. First of all, I'd like to thank Rebecca for inviting us to this conversation. We are working with Essential. We're working with Rebecca and the chief. Their protocol is a little bit different than ours, and we need to recognize that. The city protocol is a little bit different than ours. We have been working with the chief and the city manager in efforts to get a good idea or grasp on how this thing ought to look. We are now going to proceed, and I apologize for not sharing this with Rebecca, but we appreciate your responses. We've learned from them. But the bottom line is that we had an agenda that required us to get out, much like what Jeff had mentioned, and talk with people, get their opinions, and kind of get a better fit if we can make some changes, or if we should, whatever the case may be. Our goal was to get the, quote, permis Hispanic, and African American communities in one setting, at least a reasonably large number, and have that dialogue from our committee. And we're going to do that. We're going to continue to proceed as we had proceeded with this Citizens Review Board. It's certainly a pleasure hearing that you guys have taken the time, energy, and effort to review it. I've jotted down all of the notes pertaining to it that you've revealed to your group. I thank you for that. And I'm looking forward to working with Rebecca and the chief at some later point. Now, if there is some discussion from you, Kathy, or your group that you'd like to work with us, then you need to let me know. And that will probably be fine, but you would have to let me know. For all practical and simple purposes, our direction originally was to work with the citizens, well, the chief of police and the city manager. She engaged your organization, and I have no reason to believe that she didn't do the right thing, because obviously all of you are very capable people, and you feel as though this is very much a part of the role that you play within the community. And you ought to look at this. You ought to make some reasonable decisions and present those thoughts and interests and concerns back to your city manager and your chief of police. And so I appreciate and I applaud everything that you've done. At this particular juncture, however, I'd like to just simply mention that we're going to continue to do what we've started. We have a guideline, which is the draft that we've provided for you, that we're going to premise our discussions around at this particular juncture, because there has not been that discussion which kind of says you can't have this or you can have that and those kinds of things. What we do have is a document that gives us some degree of direction. And we're going to use that document to talk with folks about the interest of having a citizens review board. And again, I applaud you guys and I thank you guys for taking the time, energy, and effort to review what has been provided to you. And if again, you'd like to work with our group, or you'd like to share things as we find throughout the course of us continuing our efforts, I'd be more than happy to. But that discussion has to be initiated by your group, okay?
Thank you, Karen. That was the intent of this, and I think our intent was that this be a collaborative process, and I think that was the Rebecca's goal for asking us to review the proposal. So I look forward to connecting with you outside of this meeting. I appreciate you being here. And I'm going to ask if there's any other public comment. Ryan, you said there are no other callers?
That is correct. There are no callers in the queue.
Okay, thank you. Then I'm going to ask Kiona has her hand up, and then I'm going to open it up for board comments.
Sorry, still on my phone. Mr. Wiggle, if we would like to come to you as a citizen, not as a board member of HRB, can you please let me know how we would go about doing so? And for the suggestions and concerns and different things that are being raised, whether as a HRB member or as a citizen, what consideration, what pauses are being taken to see if any revisions need to be made to the current proposal? Because what I'm hearing, and I'm hoping I'm hearing incorrectly, is that you'll continue to move forward as is, and I'm wanting to hear that feedback and suggestions are being taken in consideration, whether from the board or from citizens, to make sure this is the best proposal for the people, and not so much for those that are creating this draft proposal, it is a good proposal, don't get me wrong. But there's definitely some things that needs to be reviewed and looked at, and hopefully some revisions are being made. So again, it's something that's in the best interest of the people, and at this time that doesn't appear to be the case.
Well, to start with, it should not appear not to be the case. We've listened to, and we're eager to talk with anyone that has an interest in the subject matter. In terms of going out and having discussion based on the information that we presently have, that's where we are. We created a document not with the expectation that everything within that document will remain in that document if an event that is accepted. We created that document so we can have some discussions. And once we get with people that says, well, you know, Kira, you can't have this, or you know, group, you can't have this under these conditions, then we look at it and say, well, you know what, you're probably right. Or we look at it and say, well, this does actually exist in this township or in this city, and they seem to think that that's a favorable benefit. But we haven't had that discussion yet. And until we have that discussion, the only document we have available is what you have before you. And that's what we're going to have our talking points for when we go before these groups and these entities. I'm looking forward to, as quickly as possible, getting with Rebecca, the chief, and other advisors of theirs, as well as the Human Relations Board, to kind of share with us some of the things that is not wanted. Because the end result is that to start this off truly effectively, we need to at least have a group of things that we all agree on, so that then we can make that our talking point when we start going out to the community. So if the chief and Rebecca and any other interested party has some concerns, issues, or problems with what we've drafted, we need to have that discussion so that we understand that. And I assure you that it will be taken seriously enough to say, okay, well, let's eliminate that. So at the time we go to our next group of discussion, that won't be in it. It will only be those things that we kind of agreed on. And then we'll continue to fine tune it in that manner. But it's not a problem with listening. So Kiona, we are listening. And we have drafted a document only in the name of Citizens Review Board. It is not something that's etched in stone. It wasn't expected to be. We do want to just kind of get a feel. We would have loved to have a feel of what you guys felt about the document. And I have a list right in front of me of the things that you discussed, like vision statement, specific eligibility, coverage area, exclusions of former law enforcement, practicing law attorney, having one of them available, separate neutral space, attorneys or autonomy. All of those things were what you discussed and you brought to the Human Relations Board today, are all those things that I'm taking back to our group. And that gives us a better feel of how to direct our conversation as we begin to go out there and talk to these groups of people.
Thank you, Karen.
Mm-hmm. You're welcome.
Thank you for that. And has this drafted document been extended to the public for their review, or is this just been extended to selected folks like ourselves and those that helped you draft and city and police folks?
Right, it has been only extended to those selected people.
Yes. And
Mhm.
at any point, will it go out to the actual citizens for any feedback or suggestions?
Is that something you would like?
Yeah,
Okay, well, first of all, when you say it like that, I don't know if you're attempting to be sarcastic or whether or not you're just honestly answering the question. Because I know that for us, our first meeting, our expectation is to have anywhere between 2 and 250 people, because we're bringing in those 3 communities plus, okay, non-Caucasian Americans. So it's actually four groups that's going to be there. So we're talking 200, 250 people. Now, you can say that, well, that's real easy to do, but quite frankly, we do not have the expense of the city of Battle Creek. So it is not as easy as you think. If a person would like those documents, it's certainly easy enough for us to get it to them. But I don't want to distribute an entire city with this specific document.
And Mr. Whitfield, apologies for that. I'm Kiona Ackley. I'm the one who asked the question, but I am not the one who answered. I believe another board member
It was Pamela.
provided that response, but I believe that would be a great idea to do and would provide you all with some valuable feedback and would be very beneficial with drafting and looking forward to bringing this to the commission, because at the end of the day, you can all say that you did take the time and did the due diligence to include the actual citizens, which is, to my understanding, who this board is designed and here for. So just having their voices a part of this draft is very important to me. And I'm speaking only on my behalf, not the entirety of the HRB board. And not sure if it's something as simple as a posting on the city's website, in addition to any social media, those free services we keep, like utilizing a Facebook group where we can just share this post and we all do our due diligence about inviting as many city folks. And so just finding the free options, because I know things do cost. So just looking for options to where we can get the word out where it's at little to no expense.
Thank you, Kiona. I know that we have several hands up and we're almost at 5 o'clock. I'm going to call on Pam, Jeff, and then Bunika, and then we're going to have to conclude the meeting soon. Pam?
yes, that was me that said yes, that they needed to hear from the public. And I guess my question is, we've been looking at this for over 4 months now, and this is the first time we're hearing that nothing has been done with the public and only your original document is being considered. As far as hearing from the different groups, we have a Burmese Center right here that all it would take is a contact to the head of the Burmese Center to set up a meeting to get their input, and that would cost nothing. We have our Hispanic churches and communities that it would take the same thing. I'm sure a church would allow your people to go in and get their opinions. I don't understand why opinions have not already been generated, and after all of this time, none of that has been followed through on.
Okay, thank you, Pam. I think we're gonna, there's gonna be room for conversation after this, Carrie, with the group. I need to get through the other board members because we're on board member comments right now, but so I'll just ask you to hold for a second. And thank you, Pam, for your questions. We'll make sure that they get answered. I just want to be respectful of everyone's time right now. But Jeff and then Commissioner Herring next.
Yeah, I just wanted to respond. Carrie was saying it would be too cost expensive to print a whole bunch of copies for everybody in the city. You could put a link to a PDF file on the website, and anybody that wants to read them can download that PDF file or print it up right at their home. If I could click on it right now, I could print it up in my room that I'm sitting in now. and it wouldn't cost you nothing. Just you can get somebody to convert it to a PDF file and slap it on your website, the NAACP website, any website, Facebook, social media, anywhere.
Thank you. Good recommendations. And Commissioner Herring and then Amira. And then we're going to have to conclude.
Yes, and another option is take and put a free couple copies. Put a copy at one of all the churches. Put a copy at the library, a hard copy, so that it's left there so that people can walk in and read those. That was another suggestion that they had for the city for documents. That's a free and easy way to get some information out there.
Thank you. Amira?
I just wanted to chime in and say, I think we all want the same thing here. I think the intention was always to include the city of Battle Creek and the citizens and give feedback to them. I don't want to speak on behalf of Kerry, but I think he was just created this proposal, gave it to the city and the chief to be transparent, to say, here, this is what we're doing before we take it to the community. I think the goal was always to bring it to the community. Then the city manager passed it along to us for our feedback, just to say what we think as the Human Relations Board, because we, are supposed to talk about human relations. So that's what we're doing. But I appreciate everybody's comment. And I just want to circle back to what Bunika said, maybe hosting those public hearings like you all have been hosting for the public, American Rescue Funds, and how the city would like to, spend that in involving citizens in that conversation. So I think that would be a great way to get citizen feedback as well on the Citizens Review Board and what the city thinks about that. So again, I just think the goal we all want is to hear from the citizens, and I think we'll get there. I think this was just like the pre-step before that.
Thank you very much. I want to thank everybody for their time, dedication, commitment to this. These are not easy conversations to have, and I really appreciate everybody's willingness to really lean in. Our next meeting is December 15th. Clearly, we'll have plenty to talk about. We may also have feedback from the audit that we want to consider, so I'll keep you posted on that. And with that, it is 5:02, so I'm going to adjourn us for now and look forward to reconnecting soon. Thank you, everyone.